Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of one of my over-the-board games. This was played a week ago at the local club, and the time control for this game was game in 90 minutes with a 5-second delay. So this was a little faster than the usual time control of game in 2 hours. But pretty much it was played at a pretty slow pace. I guess towards the end maybe there were some moments where it was kind of rushed, but I really can't blame the time control for my mistakes. I did them all on my own. Let's see, I had the white pieces and I played e4 here. My opponent played e6, the French defense. And so we go d4, d5, knight c3. So this allows either the Winawer variation with bishop b4 or the classical variation with knight to f6. My opponent chose the Winawer. And now I play a rare move here. This is a new line that I've been experimenting with called I don't know the name of it, but it starts with the move a3. Now, the main line of the Winawer is first e5, black plays c5, and then a3 is played. And the idea is to secure this pawn in the center before challenging the bishop. We'll see what happens if you just challenge the bishop right away. But someone was asking, I did a video recently about opening repertoire, and someone was asking in the comments how you come up with opening lines. And so this is an example of one way you can find opening lines. Once in a game I was in this position, and the only line I really knew at that time was the main line of the Winawer, which was e5. And I just played the move a3 by accident. I was just not fully focused or not in the game, and so I played this move a3. And my opponent took the knight, I took back, and then he grabbed the pawn, and here I am, I'm a pawn down, and I'm thinking, oh no, what do I do now? And eventually I found the right idea, which is queen to g4. It's a double attack on these two pawns, and black can't defend both of them, so white gets the pawn back, and actually gets a playable position too. So this is a position, let's back up to where we started. This is one of those moves, the a3 move, that was played. I went and, when I did the postmortem on that game, I went and looked up in the opening book, noticed it had been played before, and found out actually it had even been played by Alexander Alekhine, the world champion from the 1930s. So it also fits the criteria of an opening that was played in the 20th century, and I checked it out with a chess engine, and it still seemed to be playable. So this is I guess an example of how you can discover opening lines. You can kind of stumble into them, but when you do your research after each game, see how you could have improved your opening play, you can sometimes find ideas like that as you go through the game. So, I thought it's a little bit offbeat. It's not the main line, so people maybe won't be expecting it as much, and so I've been trying to learn how to play it. So I played it again deliberately. a3, and my opponent took the knight, I took back, and he took the pawn, and I went queen g4, just like happened in the previous game. Now, black here has a choice of which pawn to defend. He can't defend both of them, so he has to choose whether to defend the g-pawn or the e-pawn. And the best move here is knight to f6, defending the e-pawn, holding on to that center pawn, which kind of messes up white's development a little bit, makes it tricky for the knight to develop. It just can't come out quickly to its most natural square. So it slows down white's development a little bit, holds on to some space in the center, but also gives up this the king side. So black is in a position where he's going to have trouble castling. If black plays a more natural move, queen f6, just holding on to the g-pawn, keeping a solid king side, then you grab this pawn. And actually white is pretty good here. It may seem it's about even, but white has the bishop pair, so that's 1 point. And white has this strong centralized queen, which is exerting pressure along this diagonal. So this white gets a good game. So the best move for black here really is to play knight f6, and my opponent played this. And I think if you're playing against someone who plays the French regularly, they will probably know this much about this particular line, but maybe not a whole lot more. So I take the pawn, rook g8 is the move here, and then queen h6. And now there's a choice. The two main moves here are c5 or knight bd7. The idea with c5 is a typical French strategy of just trying to undermine the center here. Knight bd7 is holding on to the knight to defend it against potential future pins with bishop to g5. But what my opponent played here was the third choice, rook to g6. So I've played this opening a couple times before, but I've never faced this rook g6 idea. At first I thought, well, maybe I'll drop my queen back here, still try to bring the bishop out here and set up this battery. But then I realized immediately after queen to h4 that he can just play rook to g4 and chase my queen around, and I'm never getting the bishop to g5 like I want. So I just decided to drop the queen back. And I looked it up later in the opening book and also with the chess engine. It turns out this is the main move in this position, just dropping the queen back. And now the main move for black here is to play b6. There's also other ideas here. There's knight c6 or there's pawn to c5. All those have been tried. My opponent played something different. He played bishop to d7. So now we're out of the opening book entirely. And it seems like white is doing okay here. Let's see. I start by developing my knight e2. Not bad. He goes bishop to c6, and that was the idea of this bishop maneuver, was to get it to a better diagonal. And now, I do have to worry about at any moment he might push this pawn forward to e6 with an attack on my queen, and also hitting the pawn here. What's interesting is the chess engine wants to ignore this for a while and just play the move c4 immediately, which of course is a desirable move. Takes more space in the center and stops this knight from coming to d5. But I guess I don't have to worry about the immediate e3. I can take it with the queen, and then bishop takes. I can just trade out. Okay, and then rook b1 and just play this position. Typical kind of crazy position, but it looks interesting, and apparently white is better here. So c4 could have been played right away. I was playing a bit more cautiously. I played knight to g3 here. Let's back up. Get back to the game. Yeah, I played knight to g3 here to block the rook, so that I can not have to worry about this e3 pawn push. Okay, he goes knight bd7, and now I push on with a4. Once again, c4 would have been a better move here, but I had a particular idea in mind. I was finding this pressure from the bishop kind of annoying, and so I was going to bring my bishop here to challenge his bishop and trade it off. And he allows me. He plays a5, which actually is the best move according to the chess engine. And then I play this move bishop b5, which I had planned. And this turns out to be a mistake. So it's kind of instructive. First of all, I am getting rid of this strong piece. I mean, what I was thinking was he spent 2 moves developing this piece. I can take an undeveloped piece and force a trade, because this bishop really has no good square to go to. If it goes to d5, I can kick it with a pawn. So I am forcing this trade. He takes, and I take. And then we have to look at the situation that remains after these pieces are gone, because after when there are some trades, what you should think about is not the pieces that are leaving the board, but the pieces that are remaining. And I've lost some things here. I no longer have the bishop pair, and I've given my opponent the an outside pass pawn. And I was thinking I could play c4 here and have a strong presence here in the center and queen side, and that would make up for this passed pawn here. And so, yeah, I was just expecting to get a lot of activity for my pieces out of this position, but this bishop is a little bit tricky to get into the game. So so overall, that was a mistake. And what makes it particularly, I guess the main thing that makes it a mistake is that my opponent can easily stop this move c4. He starts with knight b6, which prevents me from moving that pawn forward, and then when I play queen e2 to try and support c4, his queen comes to d5. And so now black is just better. He's got a good centralized queen. He's got a knight that's performing a useful job and can hop into the c4 square at any time. This rook is a bit odd, but it looks like at some point he needs to shore up this pawn and then castle queenside, maybe connect his rooks over here on the king side, and he should be in great shape. And my plan is not so obvious. So this opening was a success for black rather than for white. But, well, this is what happens when you try to add a new opening to your repertoire. You're not so familiar with all the little ins and outs. And you just gain experience over time. And so the next time I play this opening, I'll do a little better. I'll know about these C4 ideas. And so that's how you add an opening to your repertoire, bit by bit. And you shouldn't be surprised if the first time you try out a new opening, you land in some hot water. But that being said, it's not like black has a winning advantage. He just has the better position out of the opening. So I find a pretty good move here. I activate my bishop and get my last undeveloped piece into the game. Take a look at the c-pawn here. And he plays this in kind of an interesting way. So the best move here, according to the chess engine, it's not so obvious, actually. The best move here is actually a pawn sacrifice. The chess engine is recommending this move, queen to c4, with the idea that after I trade queens and grab a pawn here, he can just start pushing the a-pawn. And so apparently this a-pawn in this situation is worth the pawn sacrifice. I've gotten this bishop out of the way. This pawn could come forward at least one more square. Let's see. This bishop is also, after the pawn is secured, the rook can come harass the bishop, or maybe even the king can come harass the bishop, and it doesn't have a lot of good squares. The knight's covering all of these squares. So it's going to have trouble finding a home. In fact, the engine thinks that I need to try and rescue this bishop right away with bishop to e5. And then this knight comes in here to d5. You see his knights are getting really active. He's putting pressure on my pawn. So maybe this pawn sacrifice was only temporary. Doesn't seem like there's any easy way to defend that pawn. The rook can't come up and defend it. The king can't defend it. The knight could come over. So I could try knight to e2. I could also play knight takes e4. That's the line given. Knight takes e4, but that gives up the kingside pawn over here. Anyway, the game would continue, but with an edge to black, even though at the moment he's a pawn down. So instead, my opponent, I mean, that's kind of a complicated line to see, and it looks like you're just losing a pawn to start with. So he played this interesting move, knight c4, which allows him to keep the material balance, because after I take the c pawn, he can grab the b pawn. But well, this bishop isn't quite. I mean, this position is not quite as big an advantage for black as the other one. And right now, I have a good move. I can play the move bishop to e5, taking advantage of this pin, getting my bishop out of trouble, and really just threatening to take this knight and grab the e pawn. So I miss this idea. Probably not because of the time control, probably just because I've been thinking, when am I ever going to get my king castled? And I finally spotted an opportunity to castle, and I did it, which is kind of the second choice here, but not the best move here. Bishop to e5 would pretty much equalize, whereas after this move, black still has the advantage. So let's see. He continues with queen to c6. Good move, hitting my bishop and forcing it to move. And then right here, I think black has been playing a pretty solid game all the way up to this point. Right here is where he makes his first mistake. Once again, though, this is kind of a subtle point. So, but if you can put yourself in black's shoes here, see if you can find the best move for black. It's not a, I can't say it's a winning tactic, but there's just one move that's better than the others and keeps an edge for black. And all the other moves lead to pretty much even positions. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. The best move for black here is knight to d5. Once again, not all that obvious. It's giving up a pawn, and but it is attacking my my c pawn here, and it's activating his pieces, and that keeps quite a significant edge for black. So, for example, knight d5. I can't even take this pawn. if I take with the queen, cancel that. If I take with the queen, then he has this move, knight to d2, forking the queen and the rook. So taking with the queen is out. And if I take with the knight, then he's got knight takes e5, getting rid of this bishop. This is a deep tactic. This is why this is hard to see. Pawn takes, and then he can take on c3, hitting my queen. And well, it seems like I can just trade this off, but I take here, and there's the mate. So that's no good. So it's this weakness along the diagonal here is coming into play. So I can't take his knight. So this actually wins a piece, this knight fork here hitting my queen and my knight. So that's the point of this knight d5 move. It allows him to clear this line with tempo. If I were to take that pawn and unveil threats against my queen. Actually, after knight d5, the best move for me is queen h5, and play would continue. But the idea with queen h5 is that I can drop down to queen h3 at some point and defend against the mate. So I am threatening to take that pawn. But, well, black can grab here. Although maybe not right away. Actually, the engine is giving h6 is the best way to continue. So subtle moves, and not so easy to see. In the game, he played the second choice of the chess engine, which is knight to d7. And after this, the position is about even. So he's given up that edge that he had at one point in the game. So now I grab the pawn. I could have taken with the knight or the queen. Maybe keeping material on with the knight would have been a better choice, because now he could trade queens here and get go for an endgame where he's got an interesting possibility here with these outside pass pawns, although he's a pawn down, so the engine rates that as about even. Anyway, what he did was he took the bishop first, which is not bad. Cancel out. He took the bishop with the other knight. Yeah, he took the bishop with this knight. And then I took back. And then he, instead of trading queens and going for that endgame where he's a pawn down but with a pass pawn, he dropped back to c7, hitting my knight. And now, hitting my pawn, trying to grab this d-pawn, e-pawn. So now I'm a little bit better. So I play my rook here, defending the pawn. It goes rook to d8. Castling queenside actually might be a little bit more accurate, because the king would come over here and defend his b-pawn at the same time, get the rook to the d-file. So, but still just a slight edge for white in these positions. And I'm missing one idea here, which I come up with later, but it looks like knight h5 is already a good idea, threatening to come into f6 and disrupt his kingside. That's why castling queenside would have been a little better. I played rook e2. I'm not quite sure. This is one move of mine. I can't really remember what I was thinking when I played it. It's not a horrible move, but I'm not sure exactly what I was intending. Maybe I was planning to double rooks and free up my queen to move, something like that. Doesn't seem like these pawns need to be defended in particular. I do want to be able to play f5 at some time to shore up the e pawn here and then free my queen. And I get that chance. He plays rook d5. I play f4. F4 holding on to the center. And now he goes queen c5 check, driving my king to the corner. And he plays b6. So this is another mistake, because it allows me to do the knight maneuver that I mentioned previously. Let's see, what's a good move for him? A good idea for black at this point is to come in here with knight d2. And yeah, maybe this was one of the ideas of the rook to e2 move, was to try and put some pressure on the d2 square. But I can't keep the knight from coming in there. He's got that's defended by his rook, so that's coming in here. And yeah, it's kind of an annoying move. I have to move my queen, and in fact, the engine thinks that after knight d2, my best move is to go for queen e3. I don't know. I take it back. I have queen a4 check, similar to the game, or queen e3, provoking a trade. Still with the slight edge to white, so nothing really disastrous, but b6. is not as forcing. It basically gives me a free move. I think the idea was he was getting that b pawn away from my queen, so that if the rook moves, it's not a loose pawn. It also shores up this his a pawn. But yeah, it's not a forcing move, and it allows me to come up with the move myself, and I finally hit on this knight h5 idea, which is pretty good. So now my advantage is starting to grow. He throws in knight to d2 here, and I escape with queen a4 check. Now the king has to move. No piece can really block. Yeah, if he tries to block with the rook, then I can take advantage of the pin and take the knight, and he blocks with the queen. I can just trade it off. Let's see. Yeah, if he blocks with the queen here on b4, I can trade, and once the rook is out of play, his knight is once again loose. So this rook e2, I guess, turned out to be handy, keeping pressure on the knight there. Anyway, he played king e7. I come in here with knight f6, and now he makes the final and fatal mistake. What he really needs to do, and the only move to stay in the game actually, is to give up the exchange. I just have too much force gathering around his king, and it's too hard for him to meet all the threats. So the game might continue with rook takes f6, pawn takes, king takes, and he's got a pawn for the exchange, and maybe he's got a slightly awkward king position, but there's no immediate way for me to take advantage of it. The chess engine is suggesting pushing on with f5 immediately, trying to open things up. Also, the queen can come around here and get in behind the king. But he has this knight here, which is preventing me from going to the f1 square. It's kind of annoying. Another idea in this position, I guess, is rook to d1, putting more pressure on his knight there. All in all, a complicated position where white has an edge due to the extra material. Yeah, maybe my best bet is to try and trade queens and just go into a endgame with a rook against a knight. But I do have to be careful that black has these outside passed pawns too. So definitely a position he could play on in. Instead, he played the move rook to d8. And so now this is your chance to play guess the tactic. It's white's turn to move. I played one move, and he resigned. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. I played the move rook takes d2. Now I can't take because queen to e8 is checkmate. The queen there just completely, well, yeah, that's just checkmate. So the rook is tied to the back rank. That's the point of this move here. So I can just take that knight. But you have to calculate, and you have to worry about this move, b5. What if he plays b5 here, hitting the queen? What can you do then? How do you meet that threat? Because now this rook really is hanging. Okay, here's the answer. You can just take this rook. And there's still a checkmating threat. The threat is rook to d8, or rook to e8. That's checkmate as well, because the knight is guarding this escape square and the pawn is guarding these squares. So it's a mate even without the queen. So he can't take the queen. His best try here is to take the rook, and then queen takes a5 check. I mean, I'm a piece up at this point, but also there's a mating attack. So that's why that would win as well. So anyway, after I played rook takes d2, he resigned, and that's how the game ended. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting game. Had some points about the opening and developing opening strategy, and also a nice finish. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.